Hey everyone, welcome back to Theology Thursday. We are almost through our whole week 3, which is exciting. And so we have got a really awesome topic. But before I get into that, little roundtable introductions. If you are just tuning in, I am Amy Davison. I am with Mama Bear Apologetics, and we have
Elizabeth Urbanowitz with Foundation Worldview.
And Lindsay Menwalt with Mama Bear Apologetics.
It's an awesome team. Now, but we are short one member. So Hillary normally joins us, but she is just out sick for right now. But she's going to be back more than likely for week 4. So not corona or anything. She is just the good old fashioned illness. So for today's topic, what we want to talk about is the grounding of moral claims or moral values. This is something throughout our whole week when we talked about Frozen 2, and Elizabeth shared a really great story about how her student was struggling with, well, how do we know what the next right step is if we don't have this standard, this objective standard for what right action is? It's something that C.S. Lewis struggled with when he was one of the things that really turned him off toward Christianity was the existence of evil. But one of the things he realized is, well, how can I have this understanding of evil if there isn't, in fact, a good that I can compare it to? Just like a straight line, and especially a painting. I'm terrible at painting. I cannot paint a straight line to save my life, even with frog tape. And how do you know what a straight line is unless you have that standard, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to touch on this subject. But one of the things is this is a beefy topic. And it is one where our videos, we try to keep them as concise as possible. Sometimes it doesn't quite work out. But this is one that what we want to do is just sort of touch on some of the ideas that are around there of how objective morality can be grounded. We want to give some suggestions that parents can do with their kiddos, but we're going to provide you primarily with different links you can watch, different books that you can read. So before we get into it, Lindsay, you have got a couple books on hand that is really good for understanding this topic.
Yeah, so we're kind of going to go beginner level, intermediate level, and then advanced, right? So if you're beginning at this apologetics thing or at the grounding problem or philosophy, and William Lane Craig, you're welcome. In advance, you're welcome because we are promoting all your books.
All of them.
On Guard by William Lane Craig, Forward by Lee Strobel. All of
Who's
you know
awesome.
Case for Christ. Available on Netflix. In this one thing I love about this particular book is there are a lot of diagrams.
Yes.
And has a lot of pull out quotes and drawings and all sorts of things that you can use to explain really difficult topics. And he kind of breaks it down to, I would call this high school / intro college level. If we're past this level, though, and you want to go a little bit deeper, we recommend William Lane Craig's Reasonable Faith. And this one goes, there are fewer drawings in this one, to be fair.
There are many cartoons.
The drawing does exist from the last one to help you, but this is going to be a little meatier. A little bit more difficult to understand at time. Maybe you need Erin Michelle's CD to help you through it. She wrote a brilliant apologetics-based CD based on this book. So check her out. But what happens if we're super advanced and we want something even meatier? Well, William Lane Craig also wrote another book. Elizabeth.
Yes, so this is for maybe when you're empty nesters or when your kids are on vacation for 4 weeks. Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview. It just systematically goes through just all of the basics of philosophy that are really needed for Christianity and also just show us how Christianity lines up with reality. So this book is not for the faint of heart. It's about 700 pages long. There are some diagrams in there, not a whole ton, but there are some. But if you want just a meatier dive into this topic, this is a great resource.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially when your kids start saying, oh, I'm bored. It's like, you've got a whole lot of things to keep you occupied. And one thing I love about On Guard is really great to even do with your upper middle school, high school students. I mean, you can read this together. They can grasp it. It's great for discussion. So we highly recommend that. But back to sort of our topic is how do we ground these objective moral values? how do we know that something is in fact right? And it's one thing that I noticed in when I subbed in private school. These were high school students. They were in their senior year of Christian private school, and they had no idea how to express these ideas to their friends because they had completely bought into the relativistic worldview that's saying, well, I believe this, but they believe what they believe. And that's okay. I mean, they were so conditioned because our culture, especially with social media, I'm sure you guys have seen, is, they almost condition you to sort of this group think is we want y'all to believe in this and that, and you get the likes if you do. And these kids have just bought in it. And even cartoons from the time our little ones are up, it's all everybody's a winner and everybody's right. And so they're almost conditioned from the time they are little kiddos to buy into this idea, well, you can have your beliefs, I can have my beliefs, and that's totally okay because we're both right. Mm-hmm. And Lindsay, you even experienced that with a little bit with your kiddos and just even discussing, right?
Yeah, so my middle schooler, she oftentimes will come back with the whole phrase "my truth," and it can be about something similar, like something simple, but it's not because she's trying to be smart with me. It's because that's what society is teaching her. Like, your truth is truth, and it could be wrong, but because she perceives her truth as truth, we have to gently correct that in our children. And it's prevalent not just in my kids, it's all over. If you talk to any middle schooler, that's pretty much what they think, is their truth is truth. And it could be blatantly wrong. We could say the sky is blue, and she would say, no, the sky is gray, even if it's blue, but her truth is true, right? That's what culture is teaching her. So as Christian parents, we need to be on guard for these kind of messages that are coming into our kids' lives, and how can we respond to those in a gentle and respectful way, a la 1 Peter 3:15, when we're teaching our kids how to defend their faith and how they can know that Christianity is true and grounded in true foundation, and that God's truth is the truth that we should have.
Yeah, and morality is really a great way to even help them see that truth is objective, because you can really just like play this out like to the logical outworking of some of these different beliefs, and it just spirals into confusion. Like one activity that I like to do with my students, and I've included in Foundation Comparative Worldview curriculum, is just having just taking big pieces of poster paper and writing out different ways that morals can be grounded. Like like we know what's right and wrong through science, or everybody in the community votes to decide what's right and wrong, or the person who's the biggest and the strongest gets to decide, or every person gets to decide for themselves, or humans don't get to decide right and wrong or outside of us. And then just giving kids, like a marker, like each a different color marker, and just having them like sit on the floor and look at one of these statements, like, we decide what's right and wrong through science, and then having them just write out their thoughts of like why this is true or why this is not true, and then just rotating through all the different papers, and then coming together and reading through them and saying like, okay, like let's look at what everybody thought about, like right and wrong are determined by science, or right and wrong are going to be different for each person, and then just having really good discussions about that, because you can play things out to their logical outworking, like each person gets to decide what's right and wrong for themselves. Like, well, okay, what if our next door neighbor thinks that what is right for them is to come over and to set our house on fire?
Yes.
Is that right? Like, and it's very obvious to be like, no, like that's not right. Well, if each person gets to decide for him or herself, we have no argument for that, like, or what about, like just looking at historical examples, like what about slavery in the South? Was that wrong to own another person and to beat them and to make them work for you for free? I mean, if each government gets to decide for themselves, then no, it wasn't wrong. It was just what the government in the United States happened to think was okay back then. But there's something in us that knows like, no matter what time you're living in, like slavery is wrong. So I think when we just include our kids in these discussions and try to push things to their logical outworkings, it just becomes really clear, because it's really hard to then defend those positions, because we just know like, actually that is wrong, whether or not somebody believes it.
Yeah, no. And I think that's one of the main components that I think a lot of these sort of movements either ignore or miss, especially with the younger generation. They will agree with something because it sounds really good, but they often don't trace what's the ending of that? What are the end results? What does that say about me, myself, my body, my family. What does that say as humankind in general? And so they don't think of the bigger issue. It's just, well, if it is up to me and it's up to her, then that sounds nice because then I get to do what I want, and we all love doing what we want. But then wait, how does this start affecting others? What does this say about truth? It's just taking that to the next steps to really think about not only our beliefs, but the implications of those beliefs. So I love your suggestion with kiddos of drawing out, okay, what are some different ways that we can ground this? And then sitting there, okay, well, the green marker where this one says that it's grounded in personal preference. Okay, so it's up to our choices. What could that mean? And it's a great way to do it. Another easy way that we did, well, it's one way that I did with my high school students is there was a bunch of football players in the class and they were trying to argue that, yes, it's all about personal preference. And so, I took one guy, I was like, okay, but what if his personal preference is to punch you in the face? And, everybody kind of laughed and got all excited about that. And they're like, oh, wait, if that's his truth, but my truth says, I don't really like that, then wait, we've got a bit of a problem. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things that, and William Lane Craig, he actually concedes it in On Guard. He says that the moral argument is one of the easiest and most effective arguments because it's so relatable. We all have to deal with it. We all react when something is violated, especially against us. And so it's just one of those great arguments that is accessible. It's easy for kids to learn and to memorize. And so it's just great to really expand on what their ideas are. So that is going to be our brief video on this topic for Theology Thursday. Again, check our links below. We've got great books. We've got videos. If you're an auditory or visual learner, we've got videos. We've got articles. We're going to just equip you guys as best as possible so that you can just speak life into your kiddos. And again, tag us in those hashtags. We want to see how this is going. And we have loved spending time with you. And stick around for Fun Friday because we've got a really fun activity that it works inside the house. It'll kind of help you get outside in the yard a little bit. And it's just going to be so fun for your kiddos. So thanks again for staying with us. And we will see you tomorrow for Fun Friday. Bye.
Bye.